My name is Ivy Colton. I'm 29. If you had done something with your life, I wouldn't have to explain you to people. My mother said that to my face, at Thanksgiving dinner, in front of 31 relatives. She'd been saying versions of it for 7 years. The dropout, the disgrace, the daughter who wasn't worth a toast. What she didn't know, what nobody at that table knew, was that the daughter she'd spent 7 years erasing had built something in the silence they gave her. And that night, the truth walked into the room without knocking. But this story starts long before that table. It starts with a phone call at 2 a.m. and a choice that cost me everything. Before I go on, like and subscribe, but only if this story speaks to you. Now let me take you back to March 2017, the night my life split in two. I was a junior at UConn. Computer science, GPA, 3.7. Not the brightest in my class, but I showed up every day. I studied until my eyes burned. I wanted that degree more than most people understood. My phone rang at 2:04 a.m. on a Tuesday in March. It wasn't Mom. It wasn't Dad. It was Mrs. Tierney, my grandmother's next-door neighbor in Bridgeport. "Ivy, honey, it's Ruth." She collapsed in the kitchen. The ambulance just left. I sat up in bed. My roommate stirred. I was already pulling on shoes. I called my mother first. It rang 5 times. "What, Ivy? It's 2 in the morning." "Grandma had a stroke, Mom. She's at St. Vincent's." Silence. Then a sigh. Not the kind that comes from fear, the kind that comes from inconvenience. "She's old, Ivy. That's what happens. I have a deposition to prep in the morning. Call your sister." She hung up. No questions. No, "Is she okay?" Just a click, and gone. I called Meredith. She picked up faster. "Ivy, I can't. I have bar prep. You know Mom will lose it if I fall behind." "Mare, it's Grandma." "I know, but what am I supposed to do from here?" I drove 4 hours in the dark, alone. No coffee, no playlist, no company. Just the highway and the sound of my own breathing. When I got to St. Vincent's, Grandma Ruth was in the ICU, tubes in her arms, a mask over her face. The left side of her body? Still. The woman who taught me to ride a bike, who braided my hair every Sunday from age 8 to 14 while my parents sorted out their separation. She looked like a stranger in that bed. She opened her eyes, reached for my hand, squeezed once. She said something through the oxygen mask. One sentence. Quiet, just for me. I'll tell you what she said later. It matters. But right then, standing in that fluorescent room, I understood something with perfect clarity. No one else was coming. Grandma Ruth needed 6 to 12 months of full-time rehabilitation. Physical therapy 3 times a week. Someone to help her eat, bathe, move from the bed to the chair. The hospital social worker handed me a pamphlet for home care aides. I looked at the rates and almost laughed. $42 an hour. Ruth's Social Security check barely covered rent and medication. I went to my academic advisor the following Monday. Professor Donnelly, a good man, wire-rimmed glasses, coffee stain on his sleeve every single day. "Take a leave of absence," he said. "You've earned it. Come back when you can." He signed the paperwork. I signed the paperwork. I packed my dorm room into 4 boxes and drove back to Bridgeport. Then I called my mother. "I'm taking a leave. I need to be with Grandma full-time." The line went quiet. Not shocked quiet. Calculating quiet. "Don't tell anyone in the family," she said. "What?" "I don't want them thinking we can't handle our own problems. You know how they talk." "But it's the truth, Mom." Her voice dropped. Flat. Final. "The truth is, you're quitting. That's all they need to know." I stood in Grandma Ruth's kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, watching Ruth through the doorway. She was asleep in the hospital bed we'd rented for the living room, her left hand curled against the blanket like a fallen leaf. I wanted to fight. I wanted to say, "I'm not quitting, I'm choosing. There's a difference and you know it." But Ruth had just come home. She needed calm. She needed me present, not on the phone screaming at a woman who had already decided what the story would be. So I said nothing. And my mother began writing the first draft of a lie she would tell for the next 7 years. The 4th of July barbecue was at Aunt Linda's house in Glastonbury. 20-some people, burgers, citronella candles, Kids running through the sprinkler? I almost didn't go. But Grandma Ruth asked me to push her wheelchair out onto the patio, and I couldn't say no to a woman who'd spent 3 months relearning how to hold a fork. We arrived 40 minutes late. I'd been doing Ruth's afternoon stretches, the ones the physical therapist showed me, the ones that made Ruth grip the armrest and whisper curses she thought I couldn't hear. When I pushed her through the back gate, I felt it immediately. The air shifted. People looked at me too long, then looked away too fast. Aunt Linda came over first. She put her hand on my arm. "Honey, are you okay? Your mom told us." I glanced across the yard. My mother stood by the drink table, dabbing her eyes with a napkin, surrounded by 3 of my aunts. She looked up, caught my gaze, looked back down at her plate. "That's not exactly what happened," I said. "Grandma needed—" "Ivy, please." My mother's voice carried across the patio, soft, trembling. "Not here, not today." Every head turned, not toward her, toward me, like I was the one causing a scene, like I was the one making a grieving mother cry at a family barbecue. I closed my mouth. Grandma Ruth reached up from her wheelchair and squeezed my wrist. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. I spent the rest of the afternoon in the corner of the yard with a paper plate I never touched, watching my mother receive hugs from people who thought she was brave. On the drive home, my phone buzzed. A text from Meredith. "Mom's really upset. Why do you always have to make everything about yourself?" I pulled over, read it twice. Then I put the phone in the glove compartment and drove my grandmother home in silence. 6 months later, Ruth was stronger. Still in the wheelchair, but she could transfer to the couch by herself, make her own tea, argue with the television. She was coming back, and I was building something too. Quietly, at 2 in the morning, after Ruth fell asleep. Online courses, Python, JavaScript, data architecture. I didn't have a degree, but I had time, discipline, and a kitchen table that doubled as a desk. Then I caught a break. A small software company in Hartford, Ridgeline Tech, posted an internship that didn't require a bachelor's. I applied. I got a callback. I interviewed. The hiring manager, a woman named Paula, smiled and said, "You're exactly the kind of self-starter we need." I got the offer letter on a Thursday. I started the following Monday, or I was supposed to. Friday afternoon, my phone rang. Paula's voice was different. "Miss Colton, I'm sorry. We've received some concerning information. We're going to have to rescind the offer." My chest went cold. "What information?" "A family member called, expressed concerns about your reliability. I'm sorry. It's policy. We can't move forward." I knew before she finished the sentence. I knew who called. I drove to my mother's house that evening. She was watering the rosemary on the front porch. "Did you call my internship?" She didn't flinch. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Someone from my family called HR and told them I wasn't reliable." She set down the watering can, looked at me the way you'd look at a child who keeps asking for candy after you've said no. "Maybe they just didn't want you. Did you think about that? Not everyone is going to hand you things, Ivy." She went inside. The screen door closed behind her. I stood on that porch for a long time. Back at Ruth's house that night, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at nothing. Ruth wheeled in from the living room. She watched me for a while, longer than usual. I thought she was just tired. I didn't know it then. But someone in that house had already started collecting the truth. I just wouldn't find out for years. Let me tell you what rock bottom looks like when no one is watching. I was 24. I lived in a studio apartment in Bridgeport. $650 a month, radiator that clanked all night, a window that faced a brick wall. I freelanced web projects for small businesses. A bakery in Milford, a landscaping company in Shelton, a dentist's office that needed an online booking form. $15 an hour, sometimes $20 if the client didn't haggle. Ruth's Social Security covered her rent, but not her medication. The blood thinners alone were $380 a month after the Medicare gap. I covered the difference, every month. Without asking anyone? Without anyone asking me? My savings account had $1,140 in it. That number went down every month, never up. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was Thanksgiving. Every year I went. Because Ruth wanted to see the family. Because she loved her granddaughters, both of us, even if the room only loved one back. And every year, my mother delivered the same performance. The sad sigh when someone asked about me. The proud glow when someone mentioned Meredith. The way she'd pat my hand across the table and say, "We're just glad you're here, honey," like I was a rescue dog she was fostering out of charity. And the relatives? They weren't cruel. They were just misinformed. They believed the first story they heard because the first storyteller cried the hardest. If I stayed silent, I knew exactly what would happen. I'd go broke within 6 months. I'd lose the ability to pay for Ruth's medication. And I'd spend the rest of my life as a cautionary tale my mother told at dinner parties. The daughter who almost was. One night, I sat in front of my laptop. A side project I'd been building for months. A logistics management tool for small freight companies. I'd been testing it with a trucking company in New Haven. The owner said it saved him 11 hours a week. I looked at it, really looked at it. It was good. It was genuinely, undeniably good. And something in me shifted. I made a decision in January 2019. No announcement, no manifesto. Just a choice made at a kitchen table at 1 a.m. with the radiator clanking and a cup of cold coffee next to my laptop. I was going to build this thing, for real. I filed the LLC paperwork the next week. I chose the name Juniper Labs. Juniper was Ruth's middle name, and I registered under Parker, her maiden name. Ivy Parker, CEO of Juniper Labs. On paper, no connection to Ivy Colton, the family disappointment. I didn't do this to hide. I did it to survive. The last time I'd been visible, the internship, someone made one phone call and took it away. I wasn't going to give anyone that chance again, not my mother, not anyone. Ruth knew, she was the only one. I told her over breakfast one morning, scrambled eggs, wheat toast, her blood pressure pill next to the orange juice. "I'm starting a company, Grandma, a real one." She looked at me over her glasses. "About time. I can't tell anyone. Not Mom, not Meredith, not even Uncle Rob." "Good. It might not work." She set down her fork. "And it might. So stop talking and go build it." 2 weeks later, she called me into her bedroom. She handed me a check. $3,200. I stared at it. "Grandma, this is everything you have." "I know what it is. I can't take this." She took my hand. Her grip was weaker on the left side, but it was still firm enough to mean business. "I didn't raise you to be small, Ivy. Take the money, buy whatever computers need buying, and don't you dare pay me back." I bought a server. I built the first production version of Juniper's platform in Ruth's spare bedroom, sitting on a folding chair, working 16 hours a day. No one clapped, no one noticed. That was the point. Let me move fast here, because 3 years of building looks a lot less glamorous than people think. Year 1. I had 3 clients, all small freight companies in Connecticut and Western Massachusetts. I drove to each one personally, installed the software on their office computers, trained their dispatchers. Revenue, $48,000. Enough to keep the lights on, keep Ruth's prescriptions filled, and reinvest every leftover dollar back into the platform. Year 2, word spread, not through marketing, but through truck drivers talking to truck drivers at rest stops and loading docks. 17 clients. I hired my first employee, a developer